Hey, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Alejandro Rubio, and I'm here, as promised, with Anthony Burke. He is a United States Marshal. He'll give you a brief description about himself, and then we'll go through the questions.
Yeah. Nice to meet you. Glad to do this.
Thank you.
It's kind of an honor. There's not a lot of people that actually know really what the Marshal Service is or does. So we're a very unique agency, I think. Like I said, Anthony Burke, I've been with the Marshal Service now for 21 years, coming up on 22. And even after 22 years, I still like getting up in the morning and coming to this job. It's a fun job. I mean, I'm not going to get rich at it, but I'm telling you, I truly enjoy the job. I'll go back to like why or what made me want to become a U.S. Marshal. When I was in the Marines, I went through, I did some college, and then went in the Marine Corps and served in Desert Storm and SHIELD and all that stuff. But during the end, I was in a special ops unit, Marine Recon, and I got to work with a lot of federal agencies during the counter-drug stuff. Anyway, so it exposed me to federal agencies, what they did, what their missions were. So during that time frame, near the end of my time in the Marine Corps after about 7 years, I was really looking at federal agencies. And the Marshal Service, it reminded me of why I joined the Marine Corps. It was, the history, esprit de corps, the nostalgia, the same kind of reputation or whatever that, the Marines have amongst the services. They're all good, but just, the Marines are unique. Everybody has to admit that. The same thing with the Marshal Service. I actually usually would refer to the Marshal Service as like the Marine Corps of federal law enforcement because our job is to enforce any U.S. law. So it's a very unique agency. It's one of the only federal agencies. We are the oldest. It was the original federal law enforcement. At least the oldest federal law enforcement agency, not necessarily the oldest agency. But that is why I joined. Started looking into the Marshal Service and what they did. And then I couldn't imagine a career with, I couldn't think. I thought it would be boring to be just doing drugs for 25 years or just guns or sorry, that the Marshal Service was involved in everything, and they're also involved in like every aspect of our history along, the history of our nation. From the Old West, they refer, here you see the Old West,
First 13.
Marshals and Wyatt Earp, and the first 13, settling and taming the West, civilizing it, all that stuff, to the civil rights area, the Indian movement, I mean, you name it. The Marshals have been involved in all these landmark things in our history of the country. So for me, that was a unique thing as well, just to be a part of that agency that had that legacy. And then when I got in, I found, even when I went in, I was kind of hooked more on the Wyatt Earp type stuff, trying to hunt fugitives, which I've done most of my career, but I did get exposed to many other things we do. It's we run the Witness Protection Program, or what we call it Witness Security. But everybody knows it as the Witness Protection Program. We ran that and instigated that. We've got Asset Seizure Program. We bodyguard federal judges and U.S. attorneys. We have K-9 for bomb detection. We handle all the court's prisoners and movements, and we have our Con Air flights. If people have seen those movies, there's so many things we do, and I got into the fugitive side within about 3 or 4 years of the beginning of my career, and I've never left since. For me, that's what I enjoy the most about the Marshal Service is even in my job is, I've stuck with a career path of fugitives. Every fugitive is different. It could be a drug guy one day, a child sex offender the next day, a computer hacker the next. Not only my job is so diverse in the type of fugitives we chase, and I learn something from every case. I also get smarter. The diversification or the different types of fugitives keeps it interesting. I'm not stuck in one kind of crime. And the diversity of the job itself. If I ever get tired of this, I've got witness protection, and there's many other avenues, or court security, and as the position I'm in now, I'm serving at a foreign post in a foreign country.
I was actually going to ask you, what exactly do you do here at the consulate in Mexico?
Yeah, well, I work for the government, so we really don't do a lot. No, I'm kidding. No,
I feel you.
No, we had Actually, one of the main missions of the Marshal Service, a couple of the main missions is fugitives. So everybody, knows from the old days of commit a crime, run for the border, get to Mexico, and live down there and drink some beers and tequilas and live the life. Well, that's what we're here for, and we've always, or not always, but for a long time been down here. We're here just for that. Those people, mainly for violent crimes, rape, robbery, murder, child molesters, that type of thing, arsonists. Those people that flee to Mexico, that is what we're here for. We're here to catch those people. We work with, the actual Mexican federal law enforcement, Mexican Marines, Mexican state officials, depending on what area we're at. We coordinate with them. We build relationships with them. We actually help. We train them, or expose them to some of our training. Help provide them equipment that they may need. So it doesn't just go to catching a fugitive all the time. It's also these relationships we build with Mexican law enforcement down here. And Mexico gets a hard time in the news, and it's all you see is violence and corruption and whatever. Yeah, that exists here. It's very heavy, but I'm telling you, I think we take a lot for granted in the United States as, like, I'm speaking from the law enforcement side, where we've got, I've got my issued gun and a car and cell phone, and I can jump in a database and run something nationwide. They don't have some of those capabilities here, but they're getting there. So I truly admire the Mexican law enforcement officials that put that badge on down here for the right reasons, because it takes some heart, some stones, some courage to do that down here for what they're on.
Fortitude.
It really does. They are working against a lot, and the guys that are doing it I admire them. I'm going into a job, as law enforcement. I've got this much amount of money. I'm getting a retirement, and they've got to do 30 years for retirement. They may not get even equipped with. They might give them a gun, but no holster, and maybe they have to use their own car. There's so many challenges they face down here, depending on where you're at. And for the guys that do that, I admire them so much for putting that badge on for their country or their community that they're serving. It takes a lot of intestinal fortitude, a lot of courage to do that. So anyway, I've learned I really admire the guys down there. Yeah, there's corruption or whatever. We can argue that there's corruption in the United States. I know it's not to the level, maybe down here, whatever, but the guys that are doing it for the right thing, for the right reasons, there's a lot of them. And believe it or not, they are the majority. It doesn't sound like it if you hear it on the news, but there is. So anyway, that's something I've really learned to admire down here. Like I said, our main mission is catching those fugitives, working with state, federal, sometimes military down here to catch different people that have done violent crimes, possibly even some higher value targets or drug kingpins every now and then. We're U.S. Marshals also we're heavily involved in we have a sex offender investigation branch. So that's another thing. Sex offenders that do crimes in the United States and they may flee down here. Well, again, we're down here to assist in their location and apprehension and getting them back into the United States, because usually if they're, even down here, if they're committing crimes in the United States or wherever, they're probably doing the same thing down here, or at least have the higher tendency to do so. So if I broke down kind of our job descriptions, like types of fugitives, I'd say about 75% are those U.S. citizens that flee down to the United States and we apprehend them. I'd say 10% we work very heavily, very intricately with Interpol. So fugitives from other countries, France, Philippines, Argentina, Canada, anywhere that have fled here, we're the fugitive experts. So we work deeply with Interpol and do those apprehensions for fugitives in other countries as well. We also, sometimes there's investigative requests. We've had one, it was last year, but it was a request from France, from Interpol. They had a person they thought was kind of a serial rapist, but he was here in Mexico. And they wanted us to get a DNA sample. And we had to do that covertly, surreptitiously. So we follow him around, and wait till he drops a cigarette, drinks a Coke or whatever. get that processed. So there's weird things we get requested to do as well. It turns out that was the guy that helped, and they got an international warrant. All this took months. It wasn't like, oh, we did it 2 weeks or an hour TV show.
Yeah, like see the movies.
Yeah, that took about 4 months. So, anyway, that's some of the things we get involved down here. I said 75% U.S. fugitives, 10% other countries' fugitives. I'd say another 10% maybe is those high-value drug kingpins, the Chapo Guzmans, the Pablo Escobar types, those bigger drug kingpins that are here in Mexico. We may help with some of those. Then I said 5% of those, maybe the last 5% is probably some of those odd requests I referred to, that we may just get an investigative liaison request. I'm just trying to think of other little things we do that they're just.
Yeah, you guys do it all.
Yeah, we do things like too. It turns out they think it's a U.S. citizen that was shot and killed somewhere or was in a car accident. Whatever it's not just us, but that's one of the things we do a lot. We may have to go to that morgue, identify the body, run the fingerprints, confirm who it is. It's a U.S. citizen. Like, oh yeah, that's pretty good. It doesn't necessarily have to be something with violence. It could have been a car crash or a boat accident or anything. We work with the other agency here, the U.S. Citizen Immigration Services. We'll help them identify the body through prints, that type of thing, and determine who this person is, and then help with the notifications with the other agency, notify family, and, it's just coordinating with the law enforcement to repatriate the body back in the United States. Those that 5% of little weird things we do that a lot of people do not know about. As I say, I think that's what I do enjoy most about this agency is just the diversity of things you can do. I'm not stuck in a rut of. All the other agencies are good. I'm not trying to dog. I'm going to say, I couldn't see myself in DEA doing 25 years of drugs. Although I know they do other diverse things too, but I don't think any other agency is as diverse as we are. We're like they've said, like I said, I referred to us earlier as like the Marine Corps of Law. We're kind of like we're a small agency compared to, I think we're like 4,000 more or less criminal investigators, and compare that to like 17,000, 18,000 FBI agents, another 12,000 or more DEA. We're very small, but we're very mobile. It's like like the Marine Corps. We're a mobile, quick force, and we can not necessarily investigate all different crimes. We got our own investigative avenues, but we can enforce any U.S. law. That's why another aspect of our job that people don't know about is anytime there's a big hurricane, earthquake, all natural disasters. We are FEMA's enforcement arm. We go with them wherever they go. We sometimes become the law in that area. When you see all these different agencies flying in to provide assistance to Puerto Rico or
Haiti.
Haiti, or even Texas, where I can speak of, because I was there, it was Hurricane Katrina. A lot of those agencies coming in could be from New York and Oklahoma and even other federal agencies. When they come, and in order to be covered legally doing their job, they have to be deputized, and they're deputized as Special Deputy U.S. Marshals, so they can enforce the laws whatever we're doing in that area. We may control curfew hours. Katrina was an amazing thing. We were doing everything. You can think in a disaster, the police of that area, they do the best they can, but they may be ineffective for they've got their own families that they've got to go take care of the house. Their own cars are destroyed. They have no communication towers in disasters. We bring all that in, all mobile. We'll set up communications, frequencies. We'll take over the patrol routes for them. Coordinated with other agencies as well, but we're a big part of that. So everything from ambulance services and 911 calls and enforcing curfew hours and keeping crime down in that area, looters, all that stuff. We do that for them until they can get back on their feet. So that's just another really unique part of our job that a lot of people do not know we do.